Hello, my name is Juana Gallegos and I will be talking about cognitive development theory. So, what is cognitive development theory? It is how a child constructs a basic mental structure within their development stages. Now, how it came about was thanks to a Swiss psychologist named Jean Piaget that believed that intelligence was not a fixed trait. According to Piaget, the children are born with a basic mental structure, and he observed specifically within the children their cognitive development as a process which occurs due to their mature state and the influences within their environment. So Piaget questioned, how is it that children are gaining this knowledge and how are they influenced by this knowledge? Within his theory of cognitive development, he also described his work as genetic epistemology, where it deals with the origins of thinking and knowledge. Genetic referring to the origin of inherited traits, and epistemology is the analysis of structural properties of intelligence to study the nature of knowledge. Piaget also believed that in the mind of a child there are schemas. So schemas is a way of organizing knowledge, a set of associate mental representations on which will aid child learning to understand and respond to situations when needed. So in other words, schemas could be seen like files in our file cabinet, which is our brain. And when we gain new knowledge, our file is introduced and we file those into our brain, like a little organization of a file cabinet. That's how I kind of see it. But then schemas, there are concepts that help adapt to the knowledge, and that is assimilation, accommodation, and equilibration. Within assimilation, it is used within existing schemas to make sense of the surroundings and new information by applying what they already know. So, for example, a boy is out with his family and he sees a goat, and he calls the goat, "Oh, look, Mom, there's a dog." Why? Because this boy is assimilating or putting together the similar characteristics of these animals, that they also have 4 legs, furry texture, and a tail. So they may think the boy is confused, but no, he is basically assimilating both animals with the same characteristics. Within accommodation, the new information changes existing schema to deal with new object or situation. So continuing with the example, when the boy calls the goat a dog and he thinks or gets a bit confused, the mother could say, "Oh, no, that's not a dog, that's a goat." So the boy now opens his files, opens his schemas, and realizes that he has now been introduced to a new category of an animal called a goat, and now he is processing that type of animal into his mental structure. Within schemas, there's also equilibration, which is balance between assimilation and accommodation that helps the learning process in order to prevent frustration and disequilibrium. Within this, it could be seen as a force that moves the development along assimilation and accommodation. This is a very helpful source brought by teachers in order to prevent the frustration and make sure that their students are understanding. Something important to note is that Piaget believed that assimilation and accommodation require active learning because problem solving cannot be taught, it has to be discovered. So Piaget really encouraged learning to be active, to be discovered, and to be seen, heard, everything. Also, between the schemas, let me move this. There's also a known concept of script schema, which is schema stored from a pattern of behavior. In the reading, the example was shown as for example, when you go to a restaurant, and you know that when you go to a restaurant, you will see the menu and then order the food. That type of pattern is known as a script schema because it is a pattern that you know what to do in those certain situations and you know how to behave, act, etc. Within another schema concept is a neonatal schema, which is reflexes that are genetically programmed into us. These types of reflexes can be seen in infants when they are learning to eat. Their first reflexes are to have a suction in their mouth, and they also have the natural reflexes of babbling and such. Which brings us to the stages of development, where Piaget also mentioned that in cognitive development theory, there are stages of development, and there are 4. The first stage is sensorimotor stage, which is between birth and 2 years old. In this stage, there is the concept of object permanence, knowing that the object still exists, which is a formal representation of an object. When you can see this example for an infant, when they are introduced to an object, let's say a teddy bear, and the mother hides it, the infant thinks that it has disappeared. Therefore, they do not yet have the concept of object permanence. When they grow a little bit older, for example, almost towards their second years of age, when the object is hidden, they still understand that the object is hidden and it continues to exist even though they cannot see it. Following this first stage comes the second one, which is, let me just move it here, okay, pre-operational stage, which is between the ages of 2 and 7. Within this stage, children are still having egocentric behavior and they're still having a difficulty in taking viewpoints of others. They also start understanding the words, images, and gestures in the symbolic that represent something. So basically, they learn to speak, the curiosity grows, and they begin to do more imaginative play. With the following is the concrete operational stage, which is between 7 and 11 years old. It is an important stage overall because the child becomes or discovers logic and operational thought. The child understands the concept of conservation, where something stays the same in quantity regardless. So basically, an example of conservation could be when there's a normal cup of glass and there's liquid inside. The same amount of liquid is put into a bigger size cup, and although they are different sizes of cups, the child will still understand that the same amount of liquid are in the same cup. So that is an example of conservation. And also, for example, in math, an equation of addition, a simple addition, where if 2 plus 5 equals 7, then 7 minus 2 equals 5 is another example. Following this stage is the fourth stage, where it is called formal operational stage, which is from 11 years of age and over. It could also reach into adulthood, where this stage is basically their teenage years, and they develop more rational thoughts and have the ability to think more abstract concepts and logic. Teenagers understand their own identity in this stage, and they get to understand their morals and values. They also become more independent in being able to plan and prioritize their lives, basically, and understand the perspective and feeling of others and become more compassionate. Another important factor to know about the stages is that Piaget emphasized the concept of readiness, where Piaget referred of the importance of the notion of readiness that dealt with when there's certain information that should be taught until they have reached the appropriate age. So according to Piaget, a child cannot continue further stages until they are ready to further on their development. So that is why he based it between these certain ages. Following this, Piaget also discussed the concept of discovery learning, or the idea that children learn best through doing and actively exploring, as mentioned before. Sorry, I'm just trying to move this here. Okay. So in this, you could see teaching strategies that could be used in the classroom with cognitive development theory, where a teacher are encouraged to facilitate learning by focusing on the focus on process of learning. So how are the students learning? Using active methods that inspire rediscovery. So like I said, being active. Using collaborative and individual activities. This could be seen in a goal setting where the teacher wants to make a whole group and see how they learn and understand, and also making sure that they're understanding individually. And plan problem-solving situations and create this equilibrium. In comparison with the notion of equilibration, this could be counterintuitive, but it could also be a good way to see how is their thinking process and how they think to solve certain situations, and that could also be a good way to help them learn. And also evaluating the child's development is also important within discovery learning. Okay. Overall, let me make it a little expanded. Overall, these are some important concepts of cognitive development theory. I hope you were able to learn something new with me, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much.